Tonight on Reporting Scotland, the Scottish Government scraps plans to criminalise misogyny. The First Minister says there isn't enough time to push ahead after the Supreme Court's definition of a woman. He's been accused of breaking promises. Also on tonight's programme, after Reform UK swept to several by-election and council victories in England, we look at what it means for politics here. Aberdeen residents whose homes are being demolished due to RAC raise their frustrations with the Housing Minister. As part of celebrations to mark 80 years since VE Day, a secret flotilla between Shetland and Norway is being remembered.
Coming up in the sport, I'll be live from the Falkirk Stadium as the championship season comes to its dramatic close.
Hello, I'm Laura Goodwin. Welcome to Friday's programme. It was meant to provide greater protection for women and girls, but now the Scottish Government has scrapped plans for a new law to criminalise misogyny. Ministers say there isn't enough time to draft the law following the Supreme Court's ruling on the definition of a woman. The Government also confirmed it won't be bringing forward legislation to end conversion therapy. Here's our political correspondent, Phil Sim.
In January, women in Edinburgh joined others across the UK in marching against misogyny. It's long been an issue the government has promised to tackle. After an expert group recommended standalone protections in law, a previous First Minister started the process of drawing up a bill to criminalise misogynistic harassment.
It recognises that misogyny is endemic and that it blights the lives of women every single day.
That was put on hold while the Supreme Court mulled over the definition of a woman in law. The ruling has now arrived, but ministers say there isn't time to pass a complex bill before next year's election.
What we've got to recognise is the complexity of the issues that we're wrestling with in the misogyny bill, but we can take action to tackle misogyny through amendments to the hate crime bill, and that's the route the government has opted to pursue to make sure that we can take action on misogyny and do that at the earliest possible opportunity, and that will be steps the government will take in the duration of this parliamentary term.
That plan of using existing hate crime laws to tackle this goes against the original recommendations of Baroness Helena Kennedy's report, but she feels this reflects the way that society is moving.
It hasn't come as an enormous surprise to me, and the reason why is because we're seeing a sort of a retreat from some of these areas that are being characterised as woke. Or political correctness. And I think that the Scottish Government just thinks this is going to be too much of a headache because we're going to have a whole lot of people accusing us of that.
In fairness, it does take time to get robust, legally watertight bills through the Parliament, and the government is being very careful about that Supreme Court ruling. But it was an unambiguous and clear ruling, and ultimately you can get a bill through Parliament in a matter of days if there's the political will to do so. The opposition say there have been years to work on this and another bill on ending conversion therapy, which is also in the long grass.
We know that these issues matter to people. We know that there's been overwhelming evidence of the need for this legislation, and we also know that there's parliamentary support for it. So to hear at this stage that the Scottish Government won't be presenting Parliament with this legislation to scrutinise is really, really disappointing.
Today was all about getting the bad news out of the way before John Swinney presents his legislative plans next week. On Tuesday, we'll find out what the government is going to prioritise in the coming year.
And Phil's in Holyrood tonight. Phil, there's been a lot of reaction to this. Just why is it so significant?
Well, I think the issue for the government is that it's just spent years battling a women's group in the courts about the very definition of a woman, and now they're kicking these bespoke legal protections for women into the long grass. Ironically, for Women Scotland, the group on the other side of those court cases is actually in favour of John Swinney's solution. They wanted sex to be included in the hate crime bill in the first place. But I think the government know that today's announcement is not going to win them many friends overall. That's why it was announced, in a written parliamentary answer on a Friday morning while people are focused on the local election results down south. But ultimately the next parliamentary term is the whole point here. John Swinney wants to focus next week on the big ideas he can show to voters as him delivering on their priorities ahead of the next election. I think today was simply about getting some of the more difficult announcements out of the way well in advance of that.
OK, Phil, many thanks indeed. It's been described as a political earthquake for England, but could it have ripples here in Scotland too? Reform won the Runcorn and Helsby by-election, overturning a 35-point Labour majority. The party also made gains in council seats across England. It's a year until the Scottish parliamentary elections, but only a month until the Hamilton, Larkhall and Stonehouse Holyrood by-election. A warning, this report from our correspondent David Henderson contains flash photography.
Reform UK, 12,645.
Victory for Reform. With just 6 votes in it, the margin in this by-election was wafer thin. But party leader Nigel Farage didn't seem to mind. A win, after all, is a win. I asked one of Reform's leading Scottish figures what impact it could have here.
It took time down south to be able to build the movement to get to where it is. We've got a year until the Holyrood elections. I'm pretty confident that as people start to look at us now that we've got the momentum, we are now basically the opposition party across the whole UK.
No wonder they were celebrating. Reform now control a string of English councils. The result's a hammer blow for their opponents.
The message I take out of these elections is that we need to go further and we need to go faster on the change that people want to see, and that's what I'm determined to do.
It's quite clear now still that people want change. Kemi Badenoch and our new leader Russell Finlay are working to deliver that change, to deliver on the common sense priorities that the Scottish people want to see.
In last year's general election, Reform picked up almost 170,000 votes across Scotland, and their share of the vote here in Glasgow was higher than the Tories. So any result building on that could create waves in next year's Holyrood elections. Support for Reform in Scotland is not as high as in England, but under Holyrood's proportional voting system, smaller parties have a much bigger chance of taking seats.
If they do get 13–14% of the vote on the ballot next year, as current polling would suggest, then they will have probably double digits in terms of the number of MSPs in the next iteration of the Scottish Parliament after May next year. So it will change the nature of the debate at Holyrood.
10 days ago, the First Minister led an event billed as Defending Democracy. He took a swipe at Reform then and today.
Farage has got a politics which is populist, it's giving people false hope, and it's got to be confronted. It's based on prejudice, and I've made it crystal clear that the Scottish National Party will stand full square against Farage.
So the scene is set for a fierce political fight, and the question now is whether this results a breakthrough for Reform or a false dawn. David Henderson, reporting Scotland.
And you can see the full list of candidates for the Hamilton, Larkhall and Stonehouse by-election next month at the BBC Scotland News website. For a group of residents in Aberdeen, the past 18 months have been filled with uncertainty. Around 500 properties, a mix of council and privately owned, were identified to contain rack, a type of aerated concrete now deemed to be unsafe. The houses are due to be demolished, which means not only are many people losing their homes, private owners face significant financial losses on the value of their property. Today, some of them met with the Housing Minister to ask for help. Louise Hosey has more.
This was a meeting these Aberdeen homeowners say they've waited months for. With their rack-hit homes set to be demolished, the chance today to ask the Housing Minister what the Scottish Government is doing to help.
We are the ones that have been given the demolition orders, so we are going to lose our homes. I mean, we have told them that we will fight till the end.
There are funds that are available, but the council haven't applied for these funds. Yet we're being told by the council they've applied for them. So again, it's just passing the baton from one to the next, back and forth.
Plans have already been approved for more than 500 homes to be demolished, but some homeowners are refusing to take part in the council's voluntary purchase scheme. They say that they could face losses of up to tens of thousands of pounds and are calling for more financial support. After the meeting, the Minister said a specific request for extra funding had not yet been made by Aberdeen City Council.
It was good to hear from the residents and how it impacts on them, both individually, with their families, and also as a community. There's not been a sum that's been requested, there's not been the detail that's been requested in terms of that. So that's something we'll be exploring this afternoon with the Council.
Aberdeen Council co-leader Christian Allard said they had held a meeting with the Housing Minister this afternoon and were continuing to work together to find ways to support residents. Wrack has been found in homes in many other parts of Scotland. As the crisis continues, so does the question of exactly what will be done for those affected and just who will provide that help. Louise Hosey, reporting Scotland, Aberdeen.
Well, Amy's with us now, and you're going to be talking about this a bit more in the 7, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely, Laura. We're going to be joined by Aberdeen City Council co-leader Christian Allard to ask more questions about exactly what help and support is available for the people that continue to be affected by this. Also on the programme, we're going to be joined by American actress and comedian Chelsea Handler. She's visiting Scotland to perform for the very first time. So, yes, she's a brilliant sport. We'll be able to hear from her. And also, I know it's sunny, but I still think it's pretty cold for all the people who were taking the plunge at Gourock Outdoor Pool, which opened for the season today. So, yes, you don't want to miss those brave swimmers taking the plunge.
Sounds good. Thank you very much indeed. 4 more people have been arrested as part of an investigation into an ongoing Gangland feud. A 20-year-old man was arrested and charged with willful fire-raising, and a 32-year-old man was arrested and charged with a breach of the peace. 2 other men were also arrested and charged. Since March, there's been a series of assaults, shootings and firebombing incidents in Glasgow and Edinburgh. A total of 24 people have now been arrested. Fundamental changes are needed to Scotland's care system. That's according to a 9-year study led by the University of Glasgow and the NSPCC. Researchers followed mental health outcomes for nearly 500 children. The study found children in foster care in London found permanent homes almost 4.5 times faster than in Glasgow. The report recommends clearer legal timescales and judicial oversight in Scotland. Here's our social affairs correspondent, Chris Clements.
During her battle with addiction, Sharon's youngest son was taken into foster care. Following lengthy delays, he was eventually adopted 12 years ago.
Honestly, I could say it was horrendous. Not just for myself, wondering when it was going to happen, if it was going to happen, what was going to happen. Is my son coming back to me? Is he not coming back to me? And I think if there had been a process where either you work with the family and get that understanding that that child's going to come home, but if not, then there's not so long for that child to wait.
Sharon's experience formed part of a study led by Glasgow University and the NSPCC. Researchers examined mental health outcomes for under 5s in foster care over a 9-year period. It was the largest study of its kind, with nearly 500 children followed through the care system in Glasgow and London. They found the wait times for permanent homes in England were 4.5 times faster, and costs in Scotland were higher.
In Scotland, we've got the children's hearing system, which is fantastic in many ways. You know, you have a lay panel making decisions. But these are huge decisions, and often what seems to be happening in Scotland is that decisions are deferred and deferred again and deferred again.
To strengthen the process, the report recommends set timescales and sheriffs having oversight of journeys through the care system. It follows similar recommendations by a retired sheriff in 2023.
And the whole purpose of that would be to achieve better decision making, but also quicker decision making, all for the benefit of the child.
The Scottish Government says it's consulted on the future of foster care, and that'll be used for a forthcoming promise bill on reforming the care system. For Sharon, life is more stable. She works as a research assistant with the same university, leading the study, and is rebuilding a relationship with her son. Chris Clements, reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
Now, next week marks the 80th anniversary of Victory in Europe, or VE Day. This weekend, a flotilla of small boats will set sail from Norway to Shetland as part of the upcoming celebrations. The boats will leave the city of Bergen and make the crossing to Lerwick. It's the route they took during the war after Nazi Germany occupied Norway. Nicknamed the Shetland Bus, the perilous operation involved regular crossings in and out of Norway. Well, Cameron Buttle is in Bergen for us tonight. Cameron, just how important was that operation to the liberation of Norway?
It was absolutely vital for the Norwegian resistance. I'm on board one of the original Shetland Bus small boats. This was part of the undercover covert operation which used fishing boats to take and agents into Norway and smuggle refugees back out over to. Some of the boats had hidden compartments down in the hold where people could hide. Others, like this one, were able to defend themselves. Have a look at this. If a pedal was pressed back here, these two heavy machine guns would spring up out of this oil barrel. It was some defence against the Germans if their cover was blown. These were incredibly dangerous missions carried out by very brave people.
The people of Bergen gather to remember the brave few who never surrendered. The men who ran hundreds of secret missions to keep alive the Norwegian resistance to Nazi rule. One by one, the boats that made up the Shetland Bus arrive. Morten's grandfather captained this small fishing boat across the North Sea.
I think the Shetland Bus was very important for the resistance and for the image of keeping up. I'm Norwegian, I'm not German, I don't want those Germans to come and take our country. And also for the general population, it was good to know that there was somebody standing up for it.
In April 1940, Norway was under brutal German occupation. Any resistance was met with severe retribution. Captured agents were tortured and executed.
In order to avoid the German patrols from the sea and the air, these small boats sailed during the winter, using the long dark nights as cover. But that meant crossing the North Sea at its worst. These treacherous seas claimed more lives than the enemy.
But the men of the Shetland Bus kept up their daring missions, dropping agents and weapons and bringing back fighters being hunted by the Germans. Men like Toralf Halvorsen.
I think it is important it's remembered. I mean, these people sacrificed their lives, and when reading the diaries, every now and then there's a name, my friend, and then in brackets, died at such and such, or, you know, a lot of them died, and it's worth remembering for their bravery. They were all heroes then.
This top-secret operation was headquartered in Shetland. Here too there was a strong sense of pride in the part the islands played in the liberation of Norway.
People knew, because although the Norwegians were sworn to secrecy, but it was impossible to keep these things quiet. And the locals would have known exactly what was happening. Not the details, but they knew broadly what was happening.
In Bergen, there's a memorial to one man who stood out, even from a band of very brave sailors. Leif Larsen, better known as Shetland Larsen, took part in more than 50 missions.
He always said we were many. He was one of many men that did, and women, not to forget, that did a great job during the war.
On Sunday, these boats will once again cross the North Sea to Shetland. A tribute to the men who fought and died for Norway's freedom. A thank you to the islanders who helped them win it. Cameron Buttle, reporting Scotland, Bergen.
Remembering the incredible efforts of the Shetland Bus. Right, time now to get tonight's sport with Lewis, who is in Falkirk for us tonight. Good evening, Lewis.
Good evening, Laura. Yes, what a night in store in Scotland's second tier as it all comes down to the final night here at the Falkirk Stadium. The current leaders, John McGlynn's Falkirk side, hold the keys in this race for the title, and with it promotion to the Premiership. They host relegated Hamilton Academical tonight, but they're being pushed all the way by Livingston. We'll get to them and their clash with Partick Thistle in a moment. But first, let's take a look at this league table, because what a season it has been. The top two tied on 70 points, but Falkirk's goal difference gives them the edge. In the last 3 games, though, Livingston have made up an 8-point gap, with Falkirk stuttering and picking up just 1 point from their last available 9. So much still to play for elsewhere in the league, though, with Partick Thistle and Raith Rovers fighting to squeeze in to the top 4 and make the promotion playoffs. Well, I'm delighted to say joining me now is BBC Scotland pundit James McFadden. James, quite simply, how has it come down to the final day?
I've no idea, but thankfully for everyone watching, it has, because it produces a great spectacle, a great occasion, and gives a real showcase to the league. We talk about how good the Championship is year on year, and this season's been exceptional. 3 or 4 weeks ago, it looked like Falkirk that was it done, and it looked like they were going to coast towards the end of the season. It hasn't quite happened, and as you mentioned, Livingston, the pressure they've put on Falkirk's tremendous. They deserve a lot of credit, but Falkirk, chance to win the game at home tonight. You expect them to get the job done, but I've been expecting to get the job done for the last 3 or 4 games, so you never know with the Championship.
Yeah, and it makes for great television, that's for sure. But looking beyond the Championship, James, how do you think this team could be equipped should they seal promotion and get back up to the top flight?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're a side that at the start of the season I fancied them to be up there challenging because of the job that John McGlynn had done and the squad that he'd assembled for League One. And I'm not surprised they're up there and will most likely go up into the Premiership next season. I think he's got good young players, he gets the best out of them. I've no doubt if they get the job done, he'll try and bring in a bit of experience to try and help them, players that are used to playing at that level. And I know a lot of these players have played at that level, but I think he will look to strengthen. But look, teams have come up and done well before. Falkirk, they'll be focusing on the job tonight, but I heard John McGlynn speaking yesterday and he was talking about getting up and trying to have a real go and maybe one day getting Europe. So that tells you how he feels about his squad in Falkirk. It's a club that's been in turmoil for a lot of years, but he's come in, really lifted the club, got them into the Premiership, where a lot of fans, Falkirk fans, say they belong. They haven't been there for too long, so no, they'll go up and they'll give it a right good go.
Well, as James has said there, it'll be the first time Falkirk return to the Premiership in 15 years. The polar opposite can be said for Livingston, though, who are looking to bounce straight back up following their relegation last season. Our reporter Brian McLaughlin is in Livingston for us.
Yes, Lewis, it will be a dramatic night in Falkirk. Sure, the drama will also be here at Livingston when Partick Thistle come. Livingston, of course, in a fantastic run of form at the moment, just a 1 defeat in the last 8 games with 6 clean sheets in there as well. And that's given them the impetus to try and catch Falkirk at the top of the table. But don't rule out Partick Thistle tonight as well, because they currently, of course, are in the final playoff spot for promotion to the top flight. They last week, a dramatic last-minute winner against Falkirk at Firhill last Friday night, and a win tonight would ensure indeed that they do make that playoff position. However, any failure to do so, then Wraith Rovers are lying in wait. They go to Hampden tonight, and a victory there and a slip-up by Partick Thistle would mean that they would claim it. It is going to be drama all the way. What a night it could be for the Scottish Championship.
Brian McLaughlin in Livingston there. But yes, we have seen dramatic final days across Scottish football over the years, none more so than Helicopter Sunday 20 years ago. So what can we dub this? People Carrier Friday, Fast Car Friday, whatever you want to call it. Well, that's what lies ahead in the Championship tonight, and the SPFL Chief Executive Neil Doncaster has just left Hampden with the trophy. He's heading somewhere between here in Falkirk and Livingston, ready to make the journey. But will it be a simple drive or will there be U-turns en route? Well, you can find out by yourself by watching it all unfold right here on the BBC. We've got it all covered for you with full live coverage of Falkirk v Hamilton Academical on BBC Scotland from 7:30, where the team will also bring you the goals and action from Livingston v Partick Thistle. Both games also available in full on the iPlayer and BBC Sports Scotland website. Well, from title contenders to a title winner now in Celtic's Jota, who has been ruled out for up to 9 months through injury. The Portuguese winger damaged his cruciate ligament in last weekend's Premiership clincher against Dundee United and now faces a lengthy period on the sidelines. Jota returned for a second Celtic spell in January and has since scored 5 goals in 16 games. Well, Celtic travel to Ibrox on Sunday for the final Old Firm game of the season. Rangers interim boss Barry Ferguson has reminded his players that their futures are quite simply at stake. Ferguson, who's had talks with Rangers' new sporting director Kevin Thelwell and shown the prospective owners from 49ers Enterprises around the club, is looking for a big improvement from his players from the 2-2 draw with St Mirren last weekend.
But last week's performance was one that annoyed me, made me angry, and I was clear on that in the dressing room. I've been clear on that this week, so I'm expecting, as I said, a better performance, because as I said, everybody's playing for the futures, because it's going to be hopefully start of something really positive and good for the club.
Well, a big Premiership weekend lies ahead, but tonight, quite simply, Laura, it is all about the Championship. Make sure that you all tune in to watch it. It's going to be a cracker. Back to you in the studio.
Lewis, many thanks indeed. Well, time now for the weather with Christopher. How is the weekend shaping up?
It's not too bad, not quite.
area of high pressure which is moving in and will keep things dry and settled, but with a north wind it will be quite cool at times. So through the course of this evening sunshine, as I mentioned, through central and southern parts, thicker cloud further north with some showers, and those could be heavy across the far north and the Northern Isles. That band of cloud moving southwards for most in towns and cities, 6 to 8 Celsius, a touch cooler in the far south. To tomorrow, and we've got a chilly north wind feeding in some cold Arctic air, actually. So whilst there will be a lot of dry and bright weather around, it will feel rather cool if you're in exposure to that breeze. Plenty of sunshine developing through central and southern Scotland. Further north, fairly cloudy at times, with a number of showers coming in on that north wind. And in the mountains, those showers could be a touch wintry, above around 500 metres. Temperature-wise, by mid-afternoon, 14 to 16 Celsius. Further north, a little bit cooler than that. And if you're in that breeze from the north, it will feel quite chilly. Same too around parts of the northwest coast and indeed across Orkney and Shetland. And as we head through tomorrow evening and tomorrow night, once again, we hold on to those northerly winds. Largely dry, still 1 or 2 showers around. And that takes us to Sunday. We've still got that high pressure, but we're just changing its shape somewhat. So the source region for the air, not quite as cold, but it's still a north wind, so it still will be chilly. And you can see a few showers coming in across the parts of the northeast. Temperature-wise on Sunday in Aberdeen, just 8 or 9 degrees. Further west and southwest, around 12 to 14, about the best we'll see. So if you're in the breeze, as I mentioned, it will be quite chilly, not only by day, but by night as well. Chilly overnight Saturday to Sunday and chilly overnight Sunday to Monday. A touch of frost, so gardeners and growers beware. That takes us to next week. The jet stream, the fast-moving ribbon of winds way up in the atmosphere, is running to our north, allowing high pressure to sit there overhead. That means a lot of dry weather to come throughout the course of next week. There'll be some sunshine at times too. Temperatures nothing desperately warm, but they should be increasing through the course of next week and next weekend too. That's the forecast for now.
Christopher, that sounds wonderful, but a quick apology to you and the viewers because we cut you off at the very beginning. We couldn't hear you, but it was rectified. So I think everyone got the good news about the sunny weather.
Fingers crossed.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Christopher. Now, tonight's main news again. The Scottish Government has scrapped plans to criminalise misogyny. The First Minister says there isn't enough time to push ahead with it in the wake of the Supreme Court ruling on the definition of a woman. And that's where we leave you. Good night.